Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. Today we'll be discussing the coronavirus, what it is, and where it might have come from. I'd like to start by going over the word corona. It says, a faintly colored luminous ring or halo appearing to surround a celestial body when viewed through a haze or thin cloud, especially such a ring around the moon or sun, caused by scattering or diffraction of light from suspended particulate matter in the intervening medium. Other definition: the luminous irregular envelope of extremely hot and highly ionized gas located outside the chromosphere of the sun. Now inserting Webster's dictionary. First, number one, the projecting part of a classic cornice. And number two, something suggesting a crown. Okay, what's a cornice? It is a horizontal molded projection that crowns or completes a building or a wall. And number two definition, the uppermost part of an entablature. And basically this is the topmost portion of a crown molding sequence. For instance, see the above picture, the thresholds of doors, like you can see here. And this is a few layers of different molding, with that widest portion on the top there being the cornice. So again, it's the crown. Everything leads back to the crown. The history and etymology for the corona starts out by repeating that it's Latin for corona, and it's the garland worn on the head as a mark of honor or emblem of majesty, or a halo around a celestial body, or the top part of an entablature. Now let's look at some pictures of a corona. Here's a good one with labels. Corona is the outermost glow there. If you've watched any of the videos on this channel, you'll know who it is that has been running the show here on Earth for the last few hundred and really thousands of years. And those are the sun-worshipping, Satan-worshipping mystery schools. Those who have been responsible, according to many a person's research, including mine, for everything horrible and miserable or terrible that has happened on this planet. The Freemasons, the Illuminati, etc. And still today they are in charge. And as we all have come to know, they always identify themselves through their symbolism. In fact, the sun is their symbol for Satan, the true object of their worship. Whether it is in their corporate logos, as you can see, there's the Statue of Liberty, or ISIS, or if it's in the names of their companies, or sang about in their songs, like When You Wish Upon a Star, or their groups, their think tanks, or their associations, or in this case, their virus. Coronavirus. Here's a definition of what this is. Coronaviruses are a group of related viruses that cause disease in mammals and birds. In humans, coronaviruses cause respiratory tract infections that can be mild, such as some cases of the common cold, and others that can be lethal, such as SARS, MERS, and COVID-19, which is the one in the news now. But I'd like to stop briefly here and point out that this is no longer officially called COVID-19. If you look here in the Wikipedia, it's classified as SARS-2. And we'll get back to that. You guys remember SARS? Some of you do. I do. Continuing. Symptoms in other species vary. In chickens, they cause an upper respiratory tract disease, while in cows and pigs, they cause diarrhea. There are yet to be vaccines or antiviral drugs to prevent or treat human coronavirus infections. Now, this was done before the, what is it, HQ, hydrochlorine or whatever, that seems to be working now. Further, it states the name coronavirus is derived from the Latin corona, meaning crown or halo, which refers to the characteristic appearance reminiscent of a crown or a solar corona around the virions, or the virus particles, when viewed under a two-dimensional transmission electron microscope, due to the surface covering in its protein spikes. Human coronaviruses were first discovered in the late 1960s. So notice that this is a family of virus that mutates and becomes different forms of the original core family. And this is an important fact to understand, as we will discuss momentarily. Other members of this family have since been identified, including SARS-CoV in 2003, HCoV-NL63 in 2004, HKU1 in 2005, MERS-CoV in 2012, and SARS-CoV-2, formerly known as 2019 nCoV, or COVID-19. So coronavirus 19 is actually officially known as SARS-2. Let's quickly ask ourselves why it's not being referred to for what it is, SARS-2. My theory, based on being awake to the media, CIA, sun worshipper brainwashing for years, says that they don't want to call it this. But why? I believe that they aren't calling this what it is because they want you to think it's something new. And it is, but in a way it isn't either. If it were referred to as SARS-2, then many would recall the 2003 SARS-1 and realize that it was merely a little worse than the flu. And even that's debatable. So they make you think it's something new or unknown before, I guess, to scare the masses further and to not let them know that the last strain of this virus was, when put in full context, pretty harmless. Now, I know a lot of truth seekers out there that have been trying to figure out what this virus is. I've heard some say it's a bioweapon of some sort released by the sun worshippers. And the name sure says that this may be the case, because we know how they like to put their name on their stuff. We know Xi from China was accused of stalling on the trade deals in the hopes of a Chi-Com candidate like Biden beating Trump. I think POTUS actually might have tweeted that. And wonder what's in that wine. And many out there know exactly what I'm saying here. We also know that China, if you've been watching closely, is currently at war with the U.S. and in the middle of stacking our government with all officials on the Chinese payroll. If you remember, Pompeo was speaking about the governors being on the Chinese friendly or naughty list. So this line of thinking is definitely something plausible. If Xi is working with them, and it seems so, then this would benefit Xi, known as the one who lost America in this country, by the way. This caused a pandemic and has wiped out the one thing the cabal-controlled Dems and the rest of the establishment couldn't fool the sheep about, that being the economy and stock market. This also allows the sun worshipper-controlled MSM to make the sheep believe that this is all somehow Trump's fault. So in these two ways, they can hurt Trump politically and regain their power. On the other hand, now, if you've been following along for a while and understand a little bit as to what the storm is, then you'll notice that all of this seems to be aligning perfectly for some type of mass arrest type of a cleanup operation. Many of us wondered, since back in late October, early November of 2017, what a mass arrest situation might look like. Many wondered how the sheep would handle this, especially with their MSM inciting them to the highest degree. We were told that George Soros had his various organizations of people and his money prepared for mass rioting and most of the major cities. And we saw Antifa getting their practice in over the last couple years, haven't we? And they were supposedly going to play a role in it too, according to our sources. Since the summer of 2016, the sun worshippers have been calling Trump an authoritarian, Hitler. The Boston Globe printed a parody piece designed to scare the public, if you guys remember, showing Trump rounding up people and deporting them. He's been accused of attacking his political rivals as some sort of dictator. And keep in mind, these things were done and said not on a whim, ladies and gentlemen, but on purpose. Done within a very precise, centrally planned, larger plot. Looking forward to an arrest situation and then looking back at these things, we can see why they were all said and done, can't we? It was because they knew what time it was and they were setting up their defense, so to speak. Their defense for the upcoming arrests and accusations that would be heading their way, and this was maybe a white hat way around this. It's almost as this were some sort of a alliance operation used to basically get folks to accept a quarantine by self-quarantining themselves, as we can see. That's occurring right now. People are self-quarantining themselves. And then they're talking martial law, but I don't know if it comes to that, because then there's some chain of command issues with the National Guard, and I don't believe we're going to see that. But I can't bring myself to believe that the good guys would do this, because this virus, even as overstated as it may be, has still killed people, innocent people. I can't see the good guys sanctioning this. It wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be moral. Our anonymous sources told us that the sun worshippers were out of ammo. If this is true, then how could they unleash some bioweapon upon the world? Every year there's a flu. There's swine flu, there was bird flu, of course SARS we talked about a little. You could even use Ebola, I guess, from, I think that was 2017. Last year I think it was a real bad strain of influenza A or something like that. Is it possible that they knew that every year there's a flu or a virus of some kind that kills thousands of people, even similar to the common flu, and they decided to use it to their advantage by having their far-reaching propaganda arm of the MSM and cause a mass panic? If they reported on the 60,000 flu deaths per year and did not put it into perspective, it could cause hysteria. 60,000 people, as we can see. And we're not even close to 60,000 deaths in America. So they were able to take a normally occurring flu strain and weaponize it against the people. This is why the president has been trying to tell everyone to stay calm since the beginning. But he can't downplay it too much, because thousands will die from it, just like the flu, and the media will crucify him. So he has to dance, or else they'll make him look terrible and will incite the sheep further, unfortunately. Now notice again that 2003 SARS was a coronavirus. Also remember that COVID-19 is actually noted as SARS-2. In 2003, following the outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, which had begun the prior year in Asia and secondary cases elsewhere in the World Health Organization, or WHO, or the Clinton-corrupted WHO, issued a press release stating that a novel coronavirus identified by a number of laboratories was the causative agent for SARS. And the virus was officially named the SARS coronavirus. More than 8,000 people were infected, about 10% of whom died. 10% death rate. That's big. Notice this chart. As of March 19th, there's 236,308 infected and 9,866. This is of COVID-19, or SARS-2, as we should start calling it. If these numbers are correct, It's about a 4% death rate. And the original SARS had a 10%. But notice this headline. It says that as far as the COVID-19, only 1 in 33 infections are reported, as COVID-19 expert warns of hidden figure. Or let's say reported as SARS-2 expert warns of hidden figure. So this would make the death rate drop exponentially. If 236,000 people are only 1/31st of the real total, or 1/33rd of the real total of infected, then about 7.5 million are really infected. So the 9,800 deaths are a blip on the radar. Barely. It's, I think, what, 1/7 of 1% death rate? So the media seems to be blowing this way, way out of proportion. So this too could be plausible. There could be a little bit of truth within both of these scenarios that's been presented here. Those being that this is a good guy op, or the out of ammo cabal may be using this normal occurring virus to their advantage. I know many researchers have agreed that the deep state would have some big thing up their sleeve in the event that there was a final battle for control. Many thought maybe it was a biological weapon. I remember reading a lot about that. I wonder that if they were out of ammo, then they would turn into opportunists, right? Take a virus that they knew was coming regardless and hijack it to create mass hysteria. It can't just be the normal flu that they're calling corona, because this virus is and was independently tested, right? All across the world over the last few months. So how could all these tests show the distinct coronavirus characteristics, as we spoke about earlier on the protein spikes and stuff? How could they do this? I don't know if it's possible. I guess if all the testing locations were under control of the white hats, maybe. I don't know. Now, but if their plan was to create either a real or a manufactured pandemic, if and when their day of reckoning came, then the alliance and Team Trump must have known this also, right? So could it be that the white hats were always planning on using this as their cover for a cleanup op? We see our anonymous source say, "Thanks, Chi. Good start. China CQ cancel." Now, CQ is supposedly the abbreviation for hydrochloric, the newly discovered cure for this. So did the alliance take this opportunity and use it to their advantage, knowing that this was coming? Did the white hats work quickly to establish a cure and also use it to get the whole world to quarantine in order to conduct a mass world cleanup op? Other countries could also have been involved in this too. Anyone notice how Italy seems to be one of the worst hit? They closed their whole country down early on. Rome, the Vatican's there. That's the first thing I found interesting, because that's pretty much the head of the snake. And you remember Matteo Renzi, the ex-PM? Well, he worked with Hussein to spy on American presidential candidate and then President-elect Trump. If we recall Oceanero's testimony, it seemed that Renzi and Hussein were going to plant emails on a Trump server and frame him. They were going to claim that he was working with the Russians to get HRC's emails, probably treason, punishable by death. This, my dear listeners, is an act of war. This, ladies and gentlemen, are the types of things that have started world wars. So it's very plausible that our president spoke with Italy at some point and gave them an ultimatum. It may also be the same case for China and President Xi. Trump must know all of the high-level politicians that China has on their payroll, like the Clintons for decades. They know of the list of governors that China has because Pompeo spoke about it not too long ago. They know about the Chinese infiltration into our colleges, because we've seen how many Chinese nationals get in trouble now for doing some dirty stuff at Harvard, and okay, so they must know about the control China has on many U.S. ports. Our anonymous source spoke about that. So, I mean, China's effectively at war with the U.S. Let's not kid ourselves. They don't, however, have a legion of soldiers trained to hit the battlefield against U.S. troops. It's a different kind of soldier. It's one that wears a suit and a tie, not a bulletproof vest and camouflage. They infiltrate, subvert. Same blueprint that the sun-worshipping mystery schools have always used. It's a long game battle. Civilization jihad. You see, no nation on earth could defeat America on a battlefield. So these soldiers are trained to infiltrate and subvert. To subvert our government and take it over from within. Civilization jihad. Go give it a search when you get time, from proper sources. But if many anons can see what's taking place, then the president and his team must also know. Many don't realize it, but America's in full control. Without the U.S., China completely fails. The U.S. markets, they need them. Who are they going to sell it to? So it's plausible that Xi and Italy are both given ultimatums. And maybe they're doing as they're told. Maybe in an attempt to co-opt this cabal offensive and use it to conduct a cleanup op, and from the looks of things, possibly a forced financial reset, a much needed financial reset, one with a hard medicine to swallow, one that the people probably didn't have the stomach to accept on their own. Too much sacrifice. I'm comfortable. What's also become glowingly clear is the need to disassociate our goods supply chains away from China, especially essential goods like medicines, further waking the American public up to the scam of not just China, but of globalization too. This pandemic has also showed many folks how the communist Chinese are controlling our news sources. This is further expediting the awakening. This all seems too perfect, too choreographed, as if it were planned. And maybe it was. Maybe the deep state had this plan ready to go. Take the season's bad flu that was sure to come, blow it up, cause a pandemic, help them politically. Maybe also to create such a de-evolution of society, triggering maybe even a civil war, an attempt to stop justice coming to them. And maybe Team Trump knew this and got with Xi, Italy, maybe other allies, and they co-opted this crisis and used it for their benefit. Of course, all of this is obviously hypothetical scenarios, conjecture, theorizing. But with a foreign-controlled news media, this is what we're left with for discernment, unfortunately. But nobody thought that these people would just turn around and put their hands behind their back, did we? We may be witnessing the final battle for Earth, folks. And you'd better believe that it's not going to make much sense looking in from the place that we're looking in from. If what we are witnessing is military planning at its finest, then does anyone out there think that me or any of you guys working your jobs in your respective towns, raising your families, running the rat race, would you be able to properly discern what it is that we're watching unfold? Not me. I doubt it. But for me, I just can't get past that name, Corona. So I'm going to keep my eye on this. In any event, let's stay cool, let's stay alert, and let's stay truth-seeking and see what we can figure out. If you enjoyed this presentation, I ask you to please hit the like button and please share and subscribe. Thank you.